Woo! We talked about go straight into the Panthers, about the big news. So Frank Wright got fired, second coach for this week to get fired. Oh, not sorry, second coach of the season to get fired in the season after a 1-10 start. So we were going to want to discuss about the. I want this is kind of more towards you. I want to throw you kind of spotlight because of your background in college football. But what's the impact on coaches and players? I know more for coach side when a coach gets fired. I don't think you ever experienced a coach getting fired in season. If I you did, okay, I couldn't remember. So how,
The bigger issue I have is after the Matt Rule firing, you bring in Steve Wilkes, and he instantly turned around the attitude of that team. I
he
mean,
got the naysayers out, like Ronnie
100%
Anderson and stuff like that.
overnight. And I I think first off, he should have been hired as the head coach. All right. With that being said, I can also understand the idea of going to go get a quarterback guy because you're going to draft a quarterback. And so you want to be able to have a guy that understands quarterbacks and can help develop and whatnot. But it doesn't have to be your head coach. And that's the thing that I think Tepper really doesn't understand. It's like you don't need a quarterback guy as your head coach to develop a quarterback. You need a team guy to develop the team.
I
And
think
I
that
think
goes
he
with sorry. I think that goes with when he got there. He had Ron Rivera defensive minded. He hires Matt Rule defensive minded, and it kind of like leans towards that. He was like, I don't want to go with. That might have been one of the bigger things of like I don't want to go with Steve Wilkes, who's also a defensive minded coach. I want one of these offensive coaches. I'm surprised he didn't go after a younger coach. What more common is younger offensive minded coaches they go for Frank Wright.
absolutely. Sorry, I'm trying to move my hat around because I got shadows all over my face. But if you look at it before that, right, when Jerry Richardson was the owner, in this span that Jerry Richardson was the owner from 1994 to 2018, Matt, how many head coaches do the Panthers have?
I think I was gonna say five before. It's less than five.
Right? Four head coaches in that span. Right? Now, the first two were also within a 6-year period. Okay. Then you bring in John Fox. John Fox, blue collar guy, right? He was very much a defensive guy. He's in the battle, like he's in the trenches. He gets it. You know, they had George Seifert before that, who was a West Coast guy, which was fine. But you bring in John Fox, blue collar guy. He embodies what the Carolina Panthers are built on because he embodies what Charlotte is built on from a sporting fan city, right? I mean, their colors are black and blue for crying out loud. It's what they do. They play tough nosed defense, they run the ball, and control the clock.
That's what Ron Bear also.
Well, and then so I haven't even got to Raw Rivera yet. So you've got John Fox who comes in. Very first thing they do is they draft Julius Peppers, right? They get Dan Morgan. They start building a strong defense. And then with Jake freaking Delhomme, they go to the playoffs. Why? Because they had Steven Davis and Deshaun Foster as their running backs. And they just pounded the crap out of you. And then when they did want to throw it, they had a speedster in Steve Smith that could spread the defense out and create a lot of holes and space in the middle. And then they could hit Musa Muhammad within those spaces in between. Right? So you didn't need all this stuff. You had played solid defense. You ran the ball. You took a couple shots with Steve Smith, and you got first downs with Musa Muhammad. That was the game plan, right? You move forward, right? I don't disagree with John Fox being let go when he did, right? Because it's a win now league. I do think that he did a phenomenal job while he was there, and I have the utmost respect for him and wish that he could have carried that success over to Denver in a sense of being with Denver longer than they did. Because I think Denver did him dirty, unlike the Panthers. And
Oh yeah,
then and then you turn around and you hire Ron Rivera. Once again, phenomenal defensive mind, phenomenal defensive coach. And he embodies what John Fox had already embodied, a hard, tough nosed team that was going to run the ball and stop him on defense. Right. So even when they went to the 2015 Super Bowl 50, even when they went to Super Bowl 50, yeah, they had Cam Newton, right? But Matt, name the receivers that were on that team,
Billy Brown,
right?
Ted Ginn.
They weren't winning the game in the air,
Mm-mm. They're
right?
they're leading
They were
rushers.
running it with Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams.
And Mike
Both of
Tolbert.
them,
Don't forget
and
Mike
don't and
Tolbert.
Tolbert and Mike Tolbert. But both D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart both ran for over 1,000 yards. They were a running football team with a tough ass defense, right? That's what they were built off of. Okay, so you release Ron Rivera after 2 years. I don't agree with it at all, but I understand it. You're a new owner. You want it to be your team, your program, right? You want to stamp your face on it, so you give them a year. Things are average, so you fire them because that's the excuse you want to be able to go do something else. So you bring in
He
Matt
fired
Rule.
him. He fired him in his second year. He didn't even finish
It,
his second year. He got
yeah,
fired in
you
the middle
fire
of
him
the
in the middle
season.
of the season. Like,
Yep.
give Ron Rivera the respect to end the freaking year.
Yeah.
Like that alone right there tells me where David Tepper's mind's at and the kind of shit that he's willing to do. Like, this man took you to the Super Bowl and has had winning season after winning season. It's not like they just completely forgot how to play football. Right? They were beat up. They were straight up beat up, and I get it. Nobody cares. You making excuses. But you give the man the respect to let him finish out the year. All right? I thought that was extremely shitty on their part. But then you go through and you pay Matt Rule a fuck ton of money. I mean, a fuck ton of money.
It was a 680
Okay?
something.
And it doesn't work out, so you fire him in the middle of the season again. Right? But then Steve Wilkes comes in and obviously does a phenomenal job. Should have been kept on as the head coach, but they decide elsewhere, right? On top of that, you bring in a GM in Scott Fitter, right? Who was an area scout for the Seahawks, ends up moving up to the president's office. Seahawks obviously had a phenomenal 2010 decade in which he was a part of. But since he's been there, right, you trade away arguably the best player in the NFL, which at the same time I understand you have no talent anywhere else on the offense. Trade him away to get some assets, right? I don't have a problem with it, but they end up trading away for pennies, for freaking pennies.
And you're talking about Christian McCaffrey to make sure everyone knows.
100%. 100%, right? So you trade away him to try to get some draft capital. I understand, but you don't get nearly enough for him. Okay. Then you turn around and the only, not the best, the only offensive weapon you have left in DJ Moore, you trade him away plus a first round pick this year for Bryce Young. Matt, do you remember who I said the Panthers needed to draft?
You know who I said too. We both said it, CJ.
Right? CJ Stroud.
We both
And
were a fan of CJ coming out.
100%. And I'll tell you why. It has nothing to do with Bryce Young. Nothing to do with Bryce Young. I think Bryce could be a phenomenal quarterback. I think he has the ability to get there. Here's my problem with this is when you don't have any talent around you, you need a difference maker on that team that can go win you ball games. Right? Who are those kind of difference makers? Peyton Manning, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, right? Aaron Rodgers. I'll even throw Justin Herbert in there.
Patrick
Difference
Mahomes.
makers. All right, Patrick Mahomes. Difference makers. Those guys go win you games when they are on the field because of their ability, right? Ability alone takes them to go win games. You don't waste all that talent and draft picks to get a guy that is a good quarterback but not a difference maker, right? Bryce Young may end up being the better quarterback long term, but CJ Stroud can make things happen without people around him. Bryce Young has never been by himself on the team. He's always had the best talent around him to go outperform everybody. And so now you put him in front of a shoddy offensive line who's also beat up, right? You give him no weapons to throw the ball to other than a 40-year-old receiver, right? And then expect Frank Wright to turn shit into gold in 1 year. So I don't blame Frank Wright for this season. I blame Scott Fitter.
I blame the fit. I don't. I hate this offense. They decided to go a spread offense, a West Coast spread, with what receivers? Because the only receiver you have is a 36-year-old that can get open. You bring in Hayden, who's supposed to be a not a top tier, but right there next to tight end. And then, like you said, the offensive line, who I honestly thought wasn't bad. You might have drafted a kind of almost a buff left tackle that just only knows how to run block. They can't pass protect crap. And it's and then you grab a receiver that's kind of like what we talked about, what Carolina has been known to run the ball, hard nosed running back, and you go get a receiver 3-year deal that's more of a kind of like a speedy back that's gonna be more of a threat catching the ball, kind of like Christian McCaffrey. But the only difference, Christian McCaffrey would be he put his nose down, he was ready to run through anyone. I don't know if you saw the. I saw that this today. I don't know if you saw McCaffrey's fiance took a video of McCaffrey 2 days
Oh,
after
yeah.
the game, and
That
he was
beat up
just
he
like
was.
all bruised and stuff. I bet you that's normal behavior because he's that
100%.
he's that type of guy that he loves to put his body on the line and do whatever
Well,
it takes to win.
well, here's the thing, man. That's what everybody's body looks like.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
professional football league, right? Every single person, from the kicker and the punter and everybody else that's on there is some kind of beat up. By this point in time of the year, they're all dealing with something. And that's the thing. Like everybody in the country's beat up. High school, college, NFL, they get the shit beat out of them over and over and over again. It's the ones that can stay on the field and go make plays while they're beat up that are going to end up going to go do stuff. Because it's hard to use the excuse of they're beat up as an excuse because everybody is.
Oh yeah,
Um, and so when you ask like what changes within that, right? I think within the situation that I was in, it was very much a positive change because nobody wanted to deal with this man anymore within this culture, right? Within this team. And so moving on from him was like the biggest weight being let off your shoulders. My issue with this is now the sixth head coach in David Tepper's very, very short tenure. And that tells me that loyalty and respect mean absolutely nothing.
and all
And
three of
that's
them,
not the kind of man that I want to go work for.
fired in season.
Yeah, 100%. That's not the kind of person that I want to go work for. I don't
Have,
want to deal with that. So
have you
if he called me and offered me the job tomorrow, I wouldn't take it because I don't want to get fired in 6 months when I do exactly what he wants and I'm the scapegoat for it.
I think that's perfect transition to what I want to go into next. I think your situation is actually more towards like Josh McDaniels firing. How it was
100%.
a toxic. But we'll move on because I it was I know you know I'm in the same boat, but I don't know. I'll say it to everyone. Knows I was also a fan. I wish Steve Wilkes got hired. But when he wasn't, I was happy that it was Frank Wright because I thought he was one of the better candidates out there that could have happened. Problem is, I think David Tepper hand was in the cookie jar too much. And I feel like he was the one that was probably causing him more pressure than anyone. But moving on, I don't know about you. I'm always hearing their Adam Schefter talked about he thinks there'll be 7 to 10 jobs available. But here's the worst thing for Carolina fans: they don't have their number first round draft pick. The Bears have it at their number one. Second of all, is how many jobs if there's available. So let's say there's 8. Carolina will be the last team people will be interested for 2 reasons: no first round draft picks, uh, shaking roster with no talent. There is some young players on defense, obviously, but offensively, we don't really. There's no future stars in a skill position. Next, you have a owner that we just got done talking about it has pulled the trigger 3 times in season, has fired people, and he just fired a coach, third fastest coach to ever get fired. No, fourth. I think it was fourth, third or fourth,
No,
third
it
fastest.
was the it was the fastest
No,
coach,
no, no, because there's a
head
um.
coach.
Well, you had a
There's because here's the thing, Matt. There was since the NFL merger, there has not been, all right, a single head coach that was fired mid-season in their first year until 2 years ago. And since then, it's happened 3 seasons in a row.
what was the
The
coach that got
Broncos,
fired in
the
the
Bronco,
preseason?
the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett. The Jaguars fired um, what's his face?
Urban Myers.
Urban Myers, and then the Panthers turn around and do this. Those are the only 3 head coaches to be fired in their first season,
Yeah.
mid-season.
Okay. I was thinking about yeah George Allen, but that was '78 with the Rams. He got fired after 2 preseasons. And then I was thinking Bill Belichick technically only lasted 1 day, but he technically quit. He didn't get
Exactly.
um so that's another thing that's going against them because anyone that takes the position now, the position will be filled. Because at the end of the day,
100%.
it's an NFL
100%.
job. There's only 32 positions, so someone will take it. Problem is, who we would want will not be the people that would probably be leaning towards that job. They'd rather look at somewhere else. So, I hope. I asked. I was gonna see. I'll go first. Our who we think are three top candidates, and I kind of cheated. I have three and a wild card. So,
All right.
all right, and we can break down mine first, and then we can go to yours. Or you can go say yours, and then we can say mine or break mine down. What do you think
Go
of
for it.
mine? Okay, so no order, no order. So Jim Caldwell, who's actually on the roster, coaches that. Eric Bieniemy, Brian Flores, and my wild card, who probably won't happen, Jim Hopper.
Shit.
So, where do you want to start with that?
Wherever you want to. Eh.
Okay, I guess we start at the beginning.
I'm not.
Jim.
I'm not a call. I'm not a fan of two of them.
Okay, well, we'll start with Jim Caldwell. After I don't know. I've been a fan of him. I know a lot of people like to undermine what he did with the Colts, but what he did with the Lions, and I mean, he got first of all he got screwed over how Detroit did him dirty and bringing Matt Petition in. But and he's with the team right now. I'm still been a fan of Jim Caldwell. I don't know how much he would have won a head coach right now to put himself in this kind of situation. What do you think, Jim Caldwell? Yay or yay?
He even when he was a head coach, he didn't really do anything to wow me. You know, it just nothing gave me confidence that he's the guy. I mean,
Okay.
just plain and simple. I think there are better candidates out there
Yeah. Well, I'm
than
thinking
than
about
him. I don't even wouldn't even consider it. I know he's on the roster right now, but there's a reason they didn't even make him the interim.
yeah.
Um, you know, I just it's not. I I disagree.
Let's go to yours. What was your three? Let's hear those out.
My first one is probably going to be Ben Johnson, who is the current offense coordinator for the Lions. He's a younger guy, so I think that you actually have a legitimate shot at getting him because he's looking for that first NFL head coaching job. He's from North Carolina. He's from Asheville. He went to Chapel Hill. Like I think he's the kind of guy that has a good chance of getting out there. You know, I know he was considered for a lot of roles last year, and so he wanted the Panther job before.
Sure.
Maybe he still wants it, but I'm with you. It's not an appealing job right now because you don't have a lot of hope in the next season with what they've got. The next one after
Before you go on, I am a fan of Bjorn or Johnson. I didn't put him on there because apparently there was rumors that the Panthers wanted him over Frank Reich a little, but apparently he was not interested in
which is a possibility because
because
I
of
can see him not being interested now.
I think the biggest one was because of David Tepper.
Yeah, 100%.
Didn't
Um,
trust.
After that, you know, I'm probably thinking Brian Johnson, offense coordinator for the Eagles. Once again, a younger guy looking for that first job. Could end up making a push for it, but who knows? Kind of within there. And then the last one that I have is Brian Flores. And Brian Flores has been a head coach. He's been there. I thought he did a really good job with the Dolphins defense when he was there in the way that he kind of illustrated that. So Brian Flores would be my top runner. I think he's the best guy for the job. But just from obviously outside looking in, um, but he would be my number one pick.
I like. Well, I had Brian Flores. I also agree. Um, there is someone that I kind of also think about. Only issue, I don't know what directions. our defense coordinator now. Can't think of his name. Can't pronounce. But he was kind of like a guy that should have got a potential NFL or more looked at his head coach. But I thought he would be maybe a candidate, but likely that they would
You know,
hire.
bring up you don't even know his name.
I can't. I'm going to tell you straight up. So I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like whoever is going to be the Panthers' job is not going to be. They're going to be a lame duck coach because
100%. They're
they're
gonna be the
gonna.
scapegoat.
Yeah, they're gonna. Next year is not going to be pretty because I mean it depends what they do in free agency.
It's
There's a
not gonna
lot.
be pretty. It's not gonna
It's
be
not going to be
pretty. There's no.
pretty. You're going to have to go after more veteran receivers. You're going to have to throw more money to bring
They
someone
got
in.
they got veteran receivers. They got a bunch of old fucks. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
they need
They went
veteran
out.
one.
They went out and they just got a bunch of old people out of their prime and they can't do anything. That's not what they need. They need some fresh legs in there that can actually catch the friggin' ball. They need some consistent running backs. They need a friggin' offensive line that can move some people. That's what they need. I mean, don't like it's
Well, here's the problem: is no one's going to come to Carolina. You're going to have to throw. Well, pretty of all, Charlotte's not as pleasing as some of the bigger cities. Second of all, if you're going to bring someone, you're going to have to throw a bunch of money at them because everyone's looking at the Carolina team and they're just like, this team's. They're kind of like, they kind of feel like it, almost. I hate to say this because it's already gone, but I feel like returning to the Washington Commanders. Just the joke. We're becoming slowly the Panthers becoming the joke of the NFL because
I don't make the
and
Commanders a joke. I don't think the Commanders are a joke at all. Are you talking about with Dan Snyder?
yes, Dan Snyder leading the
Oh,
man.
oh no, I think the Cowboys are a bigger joke than that because and the Browns. Jim Haslam does the exact same thing. Here's the thing. I don't know how if it's true or not, but I kept hearing that Frank Wright met with David Tepper every single Monday morning. Why is the owner meeting with the head coach? Go meet with your GM if you want to figure out what's going on. Leave the head coach out of it and let him coach friggin' football.
How about this? I also heard was it he would watch another game, and the one I heard was he was watching like Cleveland and they ran this play, so he liked it and told Tepper, well, in the OC, he's like, hey, I want us to run this play this week. Like
Yeah, it's
that's just crossing the line. And here's the thing: at the end of the day, you have a billionaire who doesn't care because he has a shit ton of money. And at the end of the day, it's just he looks at it like kind of like Jerry Jones. It's my team. I put in the money. I'm going to do what I want because it's my team and I will run it how I want to. And
which is fine, but it's not fair to the fan base, it's not fair to the
no,
city, and it's not fair to the people that actually care about the team, which it doesn't seem like he does. I heard somebody say that, well, I think he's just going to the Carolina Panthers so he could start a soccer team. That's a possibility. I'm starting to think. But then again, you look at what he's doing in the soccer team. They've been around for 3 years, and the head coach takes him to the playoffs. Right? He takes him to their very first playoff appearance this year after 3 years of busting his ass. And what's he do? Fires him. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand his logic behind it. I've heard CEOs talk about it before that when they start to build a company, what's the first thing they want to do is they want to hire smarter people than them to come in and handle the day-to-day stuff and handle all of that, and then you tell them the bigger idea and the bigger vision and let them go do their job. I don't understand why this hedge fund fuck thinks that he knows more about football than the guys that have studied it their whole life. Because as a coach, the thing that I hated the most and the reason I quit talking to people about football when I was coaching was because everybody's an expert on it without knowing jack shit, right? I cannot stand when I'm listening to people talk about what a coach should and should not be doing. What kind of experience do you have other than your 4 years of sitting on the fucking bench during high school? Right? Let them do their job. Let the players play, and let them do their thing. I don't understand this need to be involved in the things that you shouldn't be involved in. Like if you can't hire the people to come in and do their job the right way, then that's on you as the hire, right?
mm-hmm.
It just It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't agree with it. I think that David Tepper either needs to sell the team or butt out. And honestly, he's given me no reason to make me think that he needs to keep control of it. Let me say this: when Jerry Jones, sorry, not Jerry Jones, when Jerry Richardson was the owner of the Carolina Panthers, there were a lot of ups and downs, right? The Panthers, they rode this wave, just this wave constantly. You'd have some really highs, you'd have a couple lows, you'd have some really highs and a couple lows. Only twice did you actually like feel like you hit rock bottom.
But then
But
the
even
next
in
year, you
those,
felt that climb though every time.
but you never felt like it was the end,
Yeah.
right? You always felt like there was hope. I feel like there is no hope. I feel like there is no getting better. And that is the biggest issue. If you don't have hope and you feel like there is no possibility to improve, you can't build off of that.
Well, with that, we'll move on to our next topic. Um, it's for college football. It's the conference championship week. We got a couple games. I'm just going to say them out there real quick. We have starting tomorrow night. We got the Conference USA with Liberty, New Mexico State. Liberty looks to try to stay unbeaten. And then following, we got the Pac 12, Oregon and Washington. And then Saturday, we start off with the Big 12, Oklahoma State versus Texas. Following Georgia, Alabama for the SEC. The American, we got SMU versus Toledo. For the late night, Big 10, Michigan versus Iowa. And then the follow up is also Louisville versus Florida State for the championship. Brian, which game are you looking forward to the most out of all these conference games that I have named?
Is that even a question? It's Alabama, Georgia. I mean, there's no
I
doubt
mean,
about it.
yeah.
I mean, Oregon, Washington's going to have some major implications, no doubt about it, right? I don't think Iowa stands a chance to beat Michigan, so I don't really worry about that. Um, Louisville, Florida State will be interesting, but I think Florida State will end up being just fine. And Texas, Oklahoma State isn't going to make a difference in the world of the national championship.
It can.
So it's got to.
There can be one.
It can't. It's not.
Oh,
It's not.
I'll break it down. I'll give you a reason.
You, like Iowa has to beat Michigan, Florida State has to beat Louisville, Georgia has to beat Alabama, and then Washington has to beat Oregon.
Well, let me give you this
It's the
scenario.
only chance they have.
Let me give you this scenario, and I've heard about it before, and I like it. It's very iffy. Okay, so what if this is the what if we're going to now? Alabama beats Georgia. You have Georgia, one loss team, Alabama, one loss team with the SEC championship, and then Texas wins. Texas obviously beat Alabama early in the season. So here's the question, because I know a lot of people have heard not like not this conversation because you're like you can't have you can't have that no SEC in the conference playoffs. Obviously, they're saying, or in the college football playoffs. But if Alabama won, would you put Texas higher than Alabama since Alabama did lose to Texas?
No.
That's the argument because Texas did beat them in Alabama. That's so.
But and if I was making it, right, I would. The problem is that this committee doesn't care about who the better team is and who deserves it more. They don't care. They want the teams in there that are going to draw the most attention and the most money, the most revenue. And it's not if you don't have Alabama in there, you're missing out on a bunch of revenue if they beat the you cannot Alabama cannot be the SEC champs and not go.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what I think. I was like, I think
they're not gonna knock Georgia out.
I think if they did beat Georgia, and I still think they would get, even though they lost to Texas and Texas won, obviously the Big 12. At the end of the day, you would look at which is the rest of their schedule. Alabama, obviously, the SEC is a lot tougher schedule than the Big 12, obviously, too. So that comes into factor also. But it's like, if that scenario did happen, it's definitely hard to leave both of them out. And then there comes up the scenario, what happens, or what kind of falls, what pieces also. But
Now, if Washington if Washington loses to Oregon, right?
mhm.
I still and Texas ends up winning. I think Texas deserves to be in there before Oregon. 100%. I think they are a better team. Now, I think Oregon's a better team than Washington, even though Washington has the win over them.
I don't trust Washington. So that's my
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the committee will throw out a Pac-12 team the first chance they can. And so I think when you're looking at it, if Alabama beats Georgia, then that takes up two slots right there because they're not going to take the back-to-back national champs out of the playoffs. I think there is zero scenario that Georgia is not in it because even if Alabama wins, Michigan wins, Florida State wins, I think that's and Washington wins. I see them knocking out Washington or Florida State to keep Georgia in.
yeah.
Because if Alabama beats Georgia, now here's the thing. Here's the other side: is there's never been a team higher than a sixth rank going into the conference championship that didn't make the playoffs. Every single team that's made the playoffs has been six or better, and so Alabama's sitting at number 8, Texas sitting at number 7. Is it the year that could change things? But it's just a matter of this rigged playoff system that they're trying to use. Is it
I
better than
just
what it was
say
before? Yeah, but
I just say
not there.
this for me. I love it because I feel like this is going to be one of the closest. Like, there's going to be people. It's kind of feels like March Madness esque. People are going to be like, "How did he get here? How did you leave out them?" Because it's actually for once you don't have one, two, or three. Those are easy. Four, those are easy. Five, six, the ones that are out. It's like, how can you have them 5 or 6? I feel like this is gonna be. I feel like the best college playoffs, like um, kind of like not charades, but like kind of like you don't know what's good. Everybody watching was it Monday? I think Monday when they made the selection, the college playoff selection, it's going to be very interesting. Um, Especially how some of these games goes. And then, by the way, one thing that I've noticed, I don't know about you, but I like looking at the lines sometimes, especially for college games. And Oregon is a 10-point favorite, who I do think is a better team. I trust Oregon to make a deeper push in college playoffs than Washington. I think Washington has got very lucky in a lot of their games this year. But carrying on to, we're going to be I want to hear. You can go first. I want to hear your first four teams in and your last two teams out in your scenario of how to this weekend finish. So it's I hope you pick whatever scenario that you think will happen, and then your first four in, and then tell me who you're. Well, actually, start with your
So
first two out.
so first, well, I have to give you the whole picture.
Okay, I
The
got you.
My issue right now is Oregon's ranked number 5, right? And you've got friggin' Texas at number 7, Alabama at number 8, and Ohio State at number 6. I think all three of those are better than Oregon and deserve to be a higher rank because a loss to Michigan is much better than a loss to Washington. A loss Now, I think the loss to Oklahoma hurts Texas more because of what ended up happening to Oklahoma as the season went on. But I do think a loss, um, but I think a loss to Texas looks better than that. I have zero confidence in a Pac-12 team winning a playoff game this year. Zero, none whatsoever. And so, if Oregon wins, right, and gives you two 11-1 teams out of that conference, or 12-1 teams out of that conference, and Alabama wins, because I do think Alabama has the potential to beat Georgia. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think Florida State will beat Louisville. I think Michigan will beat Iowa. Nobody cares about the AAC. Nobody cares about Conference USA. And so I do think that if Oregon beats Washington, it has to be Florida State, Michigan, Georgia, and Alabama. Your number one's going to be Michigan. They're going to go against the number 4, which I really hope is Alabama. And I hope you get a Michigan versus Alabama and a Georgia versus Florida State. That would be my ideal situation. However, with Florida State missing a quarterback, they could lose that game, right? If they lose that game, and Texas wins and Oregon wins, I think they'll put in Oregon over both of them. Honestly, though, I get the feeling that they're going to try to put in Oregon no matter what ends up happening if Florida State loses. But, the one team we're not talking about having a chance is Ohio State, and I just don't think that they're going to end up sliding them in at all. I don't think, unless everybody, the only way I think Ohio State makes it is if
Yeah.
Florida State loses, Georgia wins, Oregon wins, or Washington wins, and Georgia wins. If Georgia wins, Washington wins, and Michigan wins, and Florida State loses, I think you can slide Ohio State in there.
And Texas
Um,
loses. I think you would have to have Texas too,
I
just to
think I
help
think
them.
they no, I think they put Ohio State in over Texas because Texas has lost Oklahoma is much less impressive than the loss to Michigan. I think the loss to Michigan, if your only loss is to another playoff team, that sits a lot higher to me than a loss to Oklahoma where Oklahoma finishes. I don't see a scenario where Texas gets in.
So my scenario is very similar. Minus, I think Georgia wins. I think that's the only. I, obviously, Texas. I say Texas win. Oklahoma, Oregon wins. Georgia does beat Alabama and Michigan. So for my scenario, that I think obviously I say Georgia will stay number one because it obviously the Alabama win is a lot more. Michigan will stay number two. Number three will be Florida State in my mind. Number four would be Oregon for knocking off undefeated in Washington. Now here's the one that I know you won't probably agree with. My 5 and 6. I would put 5 Texas, Ohio State 6, and my reason is I know you said the Michigan game loss was more impressive than the Florida, but the Oklahoma, but it was also a rival loss, and Oklahoma is ranked 12, and they will have a conference championship too. And we've known the college playoff has always leaned towards. I know that the conference championship does weigh. It doesn't weigh a lot, but they also. I feel like Ohio State's only big win is Penn State, but you look at it, Michigan beat them. But I think that Alabama win is going to pull more favorites because you'll pull more towards their leaning towards them. But I still don't see them getting in. It's very hard to see Texas get in or Ohio State, obviously. But that would be my first four.
Very good.
Like I said, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be very interesting, and there's gonna be some choices because I forget how many people are on the board to make this, but we you definitely see if there's some scenarios that do fall, some teams that do fall that we don't expect. It's gonna be very interested who they favor, and it's like Ohio State. Maybe they look at Ohio State more than we do with that Michigan loss. If Michigan won, and let's say Georgia lost, let's say Washington lost, and Florida State lost. Where does the college playoff look at Ohio State? Are they, even though they didn't win a national or a conference championship, do they put them pretty high? And it's just like what the thing we can say one way, but it's just it's one of those things. I'm voting for. I'm kind of cheering on for the chaos scenario. So,
Hey, I'm all about it. I like to see all the things that could play out from it because it definitely could be could be crazy moving forward for sure.
And I'm also, I know I'm probably not going to see the game. I might try to, but I'm also cheering on Liberty to go unbeaten. I always like to see non teams unbeaten. Obviously, they won't get into college playoffs, but seeing a team go unbeaten, even though they might have an easier schedule, it's still pretty nice to see
Well,
unbeaten school.
I'm a big I'm a big Jamie Chadwell guy. You know what he did over at Coastal and what he's doing over at Liberty in his first year there after um, Frost leaves. I think what the kind of culture that he builds is very similar to what I think the Carolina Panthers need. he and honestly, it's just a bunch of tough nosed kids. He runs that spread triple option, keeps things guessing, and then builds a tremendous defense from there. And that triple option is hard to stop because of the way they do it. They can throw it in there. They're doing everything out of the pistol or shotgun, and they're getting that option guy moving around. I think it's a very effective offense when you've got the tools for it, and obviously they've got the tools to be special with him in his first year as the front runners to win Conference USA.
Yeah, definitely. And he'll definitely be one of the higher candidates for college. I feel like some college teams in the Power Five. Well, let's move on. We'll stay in some college, and I wanted to talk about your obviously Bulls athletics a little bit and your coaching background. And I want to throw a couple questions at you if you don't mind,
Go for
just
it.
for people. So, what inspired you to transition from coaching to starting the Bulls athletics?
Well, I was in college coaching for over a decade and was able to move around and see a lot of different things in that time. As you see, my giant 150-pound Bernedoodle back there. Uh, um, but I spent over a decade in college athletics and kind of going through. Honestly, the change came because it was a family decision because of just seeing how things were changing in my life and my priorities changing. I loved coaching and loved everything I did there, but wanted to be able to settle down a little bit in that capacity, but also still work with athletes. And one of the big things that I ran into time and time again was that I kept seeing. Well, let me say this. I'll stop real quick. One of the biggest issues that I saw was I told kids over and over and over again not to use recruiting services because they were absolutely bogus. Most of these recruiting services have you build a profile, and then on that profile, they're going to say, oh, all these coaches are going to come and look at this. This is where you can really market yourself. Matt, do you want to take a guess on how many times that I went and looked at one of those websites?
Probably
Not
once
a
or
single
twice.
time. Not a single time. What? What can I learn from them? Nothing. Right?
Is
We
it because they're
already.
putting? Sorry, for someone that maybe not knowing, like, is it more because a lot of the people putting stuff on there is kind of like highlights, stuff like that? It's not like the true person or like what you see on tape or in person, stuff like that.
What can that recruiting profile tell me that their head coach can't?
The truth.
Right? It's football. It's not like, in some sports, maybe in soccer where you've got all these club sports and all these teams where you've got so much going on, right? That it can help navigate. But I had a conversation with a college soccer coach today who responds to personalized emails more than he does recruiting services. And the thing is, and here's the biggest reason. Every single school that I worked at, we already were paying for a recruiting service that none of these kids had to mess with, right? The
Mm-hmm.
last one we were paying for, we were using Catapult, and Catapult has a area scouts that go around and they send all these emails to coaches. They go around and visit these schools. They end up putting together profiles of these athletes based off of the coach's recommendation and what the coach says that they need to go do. And so, right off the bat, we look at that list. I've already got a list of every single kid recommended from their high school coach. Why do I need to go look at another profile that I have to still dig through all this other stuff? These profiles, what they do is they send out automated emails to all these coaches. Guess what I did to every single one of those automated emails?
What you do?
I didn't even open them. They were deleted immediately. They never once got open because as a college coach, getting all these recruiting service emails, I was receiving almost 300 emails a day from recruiting services. Just from recruiting services. I'm not going to go spend my time trying to track down a kid that doesn't even have the time to email me himself. I'm not wasting my time on it because I already know who I want. I already know who I'm going after. You signing up for this recruiting service is a waste of money and a waste of time because I'm not looking at it and none of the other coaches are either. And so what I wanted to do was something a little bit more personalized, right? What I want to do, or well, the whole, so what I wanted to create was a way to help educate these athletes on how they can take control of their recruiting. Empowerment through education. I'm not going to stand in front of a kid and his parents and say, I'm going to get your kid a scholarship to every D1 in the country because it's bullshit. It's unrealistic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be that voice, or I should say, I should be talking in present tense right now because it's happening. What I do is become a ear, or sorry, I'm not even an ear. What I do is become a truth voice on their shoulders, a voice of truth on their shoulder, because you see these kids all the time that want to go do all these big things, but they don't know how to go about it. They don't understand the importance of their academics because nobody's there to tell them. A lot of these head coaches don't. There are a lot of really, really good high school head coaches out there. And a lot of these guys are doing everything they can to get recruited. But you would be surprised by the amount of coaches that I have run into over my career that have no idea what it takes for these kids to be eligible to go play college football from an academic standpoint. This is basic stuff that is found online that anybody can go up and look. But the lack of knowledge, because they don't have the help, they don't have somebody there telling them, it makes it very difficult for the kids. There was a time that I went to the school that I was going to go recruit, and I'm talking to the coach, and he cannot understand why this receiver is not getting any love. And I tell you, he was a good ball player. He was 6'2, 6'3. He could catch, he could run, he was phenomenal out of his break. He would go up and make plays, he could jump over defenders, he would come down and be able to have perfect body control on the way down. He was physical, all the things you're looking for, and he could not figure out why he was not being recruited. And I said, Coach, he's 5 classes away from even being remotely eligible. Well, what do you mean? He's got a 3.2 GPA. But the NCAA doesn't look at your overall GPA. They look at your core GPA. Your core GPA is made up of your Englishes, your maths, your sciences, your social studies, your language classes, right? Your Spanish, your French, your German. They have a list of core classes, and you have to use those grades. PE doesn't count. Leadership development doesn't count, right? None of that goes into your grade. So when you look at a lot of these kids, and our general rule was if they have a 3.0 GPA, then they have a 2.0 core. Now, that's not always the case, but that was generally the guideline when we were looking at a transcript is you deduct a point off that GPA. So if you come at me with a 3 GPA, I'm going to be really worried that you're not going to be eligible. Now, once I run the numbers, I can figure it out and tell you exactly what you need to be eligible. But there's just such a lack of education there. So that's the first thing that I do with a recruit is just simply educate. Hey, this is how the recruiting process works. This is what you have to do if you want to go play college football. And none of that has anything to do with skill. It doesn't matter if you're the most talented person in the room or if you're just trying to figure out how to put your shoulder pads on. If you are not eligible to play, you will not get recruited because they will not waste their time. Now, I say that, and I'll add this to it. There are also a good handful of kids that we might take an extra chance on and gray shirt them for a year, knowing how much of a difference maker they would be for our program. But at my last school, in the 5 years I was there, you know how many times we did that?
I don't think as much as
Twice.
I would
You know how
think.
many times we did it at Western?
More than twice.
0.
Oh, I think I
Because
thought it would be opposite.
there wasn't a need for it because those kids are going to go JUCO, right? At the
Yeah.
Division 1 level, the kids that aren't eligible are going to go JUCO and they're going to go there for a year or two so that way they can try to chase that Power 5 dream, right? The kids that we would end up getting at Division 2 level within all that were kids that didn't want to go JUCO, right? To start with, but also at the same time, they weren't getting the love from the bigger schools to start with, right? So that's a big issue. If you're not eligible, you're not going to get recruited, especially today with the transfer portal. The transfer portal has made it extremely difficult for high school kids because there's not nearly as many kids getting signed out of high school. One of the biggest things that I noticed is that we were getting kids that were a level above where we should be after the transfer portal came into effect because your bigger schools, your SEC teams, your ACC teams, your Power 5, your Group of 5 guys, they were all filling up faster because of the portal. They signed less high school guys. So then FCS, they're getting some of the top players that they normally wouldn't be able to get because they're going to FBS programs. But now the FBS is filling up, it trickles down to them. So now they're able to get better kids. Well, now the kids that they normally would go after, they're already filled between the transfer portal and getting the better kids. And so what this has done is there are less high school kids signing football scholarships on signing day because there are more needs being met through the transfer portal. And so it's a very difficult time to be a high school kid. So you asked me why I got involved and why I started, and it's to try to help educate, to try to be a part of this. The other aspect of it is there's so much bad advice. There's so much bad advice. Too many times I hear these parents, these uncles, these grandparents, these people that have never been in the business, never been in the industry, telling them what they need to do. And most of the time, it's bullshit.
Too many opinions of people.
100%. And it's not even good opinions at that. It's, oh, well, you need to go do this. Oh, you're better than this. You need to go do this. And very few times are the kids asked what they want. And then even fewer times are they told the realistic nature of what they want and how that compares to what they can accomplish. Because at the end of the day, there's a limit to what you can do. I know everybody wants to talk about the sky's the limit. At the end of the day, there is a limit to your athletic ability. Now, there are some people that can push that limit a lot farther or are willing to do the work to push that to the limit. But when you have mediocre players being told how great they are and they think they're working, but they're really not, and that's a whole nother issue, is a lot of kids these days think they're busting their butt when they're really not, when they're not putting forth everything they have, when they're just doing enough to get by. You're going to have a lot of disappointed people.
A lot of them don't know. They don't know that. They don't know the hard work, or they just think what they're doing on the field is that it. A lot of people don't know too about that. About there's more they can do to better themselves, or you do have the people that just don't want to do it. But I wanted to
Well,
go, huh?
you run into a lot of times where you got a lot of these kids that are the best player on their team. And they've been the best player on their team since they were 5 years old. And so in their mind, what they have to do to work is not nearly as much as the guy that's been fighting his butt off to make the team every year. And there's a reason that you see, especially at the lower levels within college football, you've got a handful of guys that come in thinking they're everything and end up being nothing. And you have a handful of guys that are nothing and end up being the best player on the team. A lot of that comes down to the development that comes into it, but that development means nothing if they're not the ones busting their butt. You see, the price that you pay to be a great athlete is a lot higher the price you pay to be a great athlete oftentimes is higher than the price these kids are willing to pay. Are they willing to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go get an extra run in? Are they willing to stay after practice and get an extra lift in? Are they willing to come before practice and to walk through their drills? Are they willing to speak up and challenge their teammates to be great? Or are they just going to sit back and let it happen? Are they going to go straight home after practice because they want to go home and eat because they're hungry? Are they going to want to sleep in because they're not willing to put in the sacrifice? Those that are willing to do the extra stuff are the ones that are going to be great. Because at the end of the day, being a phenomenal athlete is freaking hard. And too many great athletes are satisfied with where they're at because they don't understand what it takes to get to the next level. So the thing that we do at Vols Athletics is not only do we educate about the recruiting process, but we also help hold them accountable along the way. Throughout this step by step, where they're checking on them, make sure, hey, first off, are our grades where they need to be? If not, what do we need to do to improve it? Because here's the thing, you don't have to be the greatest student, but you cannot let that deter you from giving effort. I'll tell you one of the greatest things that I see an issue with is this fear of failure, right? The idea that if I don't try, I can't be upset if I don't make it. It hurts kids more than anything. That's the biggest issue I see. And I see it in school, I see it in football, I see it in life. If I don't give my all, I cannot be disappointed. It is a fear of failure, and it will hold every single person back from being able to go achieve what they want to achieve. If you're afraid of trying because of the fear of failure, you'll never accomplish anything of significance. There's no chance for you. And I see that time and time again. And so that's one of the biggest roles that I have is talking with these kids. First off, giving them belief that it's possible, but they showing them where those possibilities can become reality. Because not every player is going to go play for Georgia. Not every player is going to go play for Clemson. Not every player is going to go play for Texas. In fact, the percentage is astronomically small. How many high school kids do you think Georgia's taking this year?
Not a lot.
10 to 15, right? In the entire country. Okay. It's a very small pool. And some of these schools are taking even less than that
Because of the portal now.
because of the portal. Exactly. And so one of the biggest things that I do is I try to be 100% as honest as I possibly can be with these kids to let them know, hey, you ain't going to go play at Georgia, bro. But there are other schools, if football's important to you, you can go play at. And if you want to play, I can help show you how to get there. But you've got to blend the combination of reality of where your talent is right now, because your potential is your potential. But when a coach is recruiting you, they're not recruiting you solely on your potential. They're recruiting on what you can do right now, right? And so, based off of that, where do you fit? And then we try to find that together.
Well, I like what you said about the recruiting. I was gonna ask you, is there any other issues that you saw as a college coach when you're recruiting?
There's a lot of issues that go
What
into
was
it.
your
And
biggest issue?
the biggest issue that I saw as a college football coach was kids who think the dream of playing football is bigger than the reality. And what I mean by that is I saw kids time and time again that would go and put themselves into debt. And we're talking 30,000, 40,000, 60,000, sometimes up to $75,000 in debt for 1 year of going to a school they didn't want to go to start with to try and go play football. And then they get there and they realize that they don't love football like they thought they loved football. And so what do? They transfer out to these other schools that they wanted to go to start with. And now, instead of just doing that right off the bat and going to an affordable school, that's a public school, that's a bigger school, that has all the parties that they wanted to go to start with, they're going into that in the same debt that a doctor's in because they liked the idea of being a college football player more than they liked the actual part of being a college football player. Being a college football player is one of the toughest jobs out there. I don't care what you say. It is one of the toughest jobs out there. You're asking these kids to come out and to put 40 to 60 hours a week into their school, and then you say during the season there's a maximum of 20 hours that they can be a football player, but the reality is if you're only spending 20 hours in it, you're not going to be elite because you got to go back into your room and study. You got to go back into your room and talk with your teammates and get on the same page. You got to do this extra stuff. You got to get into the weight room and do some yoga. You got to go after practice and throw some extra balls. And so, if you want to be great, that 20 hours turns into 30 real quick. And now these kids are working 60 to 80 hours a week to try to accomplish this. The great ones are. The ones that aren't are going to do the bare minimum. They're going to go to class. They might do their homework. They might turn in their stuff. They're going to go to practice. They're going to go to weights. But if they're not in that, they play in the game. They chasing the girl. They in the cafe eating. They playing with the boys. Whatever it may be, they're going to find all this other stuff to do other than focused on what's happening. I use this as an example. When you saw LeBron James's career completely change and shift gears into another level that the NBA has never seen, it came after the 2008 Olympics. What happened in that 2008 Olympics?
It was gold.
But
No,
why?
the
It did.
yeah, because they got in the four lost
Yeah.
horribly.
But what happened? What changed?
The mindsets.
Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant came in and taught them how to work.
Yeah, the
When
mindset.
Kobe Bryant came in and joined the USA men's team, The first thing he did was he started getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go lift. Every single day, he got up at 4:30 and went to go lift. You know who was in there with him every single day once they saw that he was doing that?
LeBron.
LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. You know who wasn't in there? Who saw it and straight up said, "I ain't getting up that early"?
I bet you I know
Carmelo
who.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony, who went on to have a better career in the 2010s.
You
Wasn't
don't.
Melo. And I'm a big Melo fan. I loved Melo, but his best years were when he was younger. But when you saw the transition of these guys putting in the extra time and the extra work and really showing that I can't just show up and it be good enough, because showing up is the minimum. It's the bare minimum. Anyone playing the game is just going to show up. If you want to be great, it's what you do outside of practice. It's what you do outside of weights. All that other stuff is what changes to make you great. Because if you're not willing to put a little extra time into something you love, I know you're not going to put into extra time to English class, into biology, into math, into all this other crap that you won't want to deal with. So if you can't even take the time to go get an extra lift in, or to go throw with your receivers, or to go try to work on some extra moves, then I know you're not going to put in time for anything else.
You know my favorite. Talking about that '08 Olympics teams. I know that you probably heard it. That Kobe about his mindset, but I loved I loved what he did the first game. Uh,
Fuck
Payne,
so.
yeah, or Pot Pal, showing like dedications. Like I don't care if he's our teammate because that was the mindset he had. He goes, I don't care you guys, whoever we're playing, if you were teammates, friends, we're here together. And then he ran right through Pal on the first screen. I'm running through right through his chest. Really not. He ran right through Pal and knocked him on his butt. But,
Absolutely. Because the
uh,
team is more important.
so okay. I have one more question, and then we'll wrap up for this episode. It's a little shorter than what we normally do, but we're trying out different stuff. Um, so we'll be with us. We don't know how long these are good. But my last question for you, Brian, is just kind of like more for people that are hearing about us or looking up Vols athletics, and it's like, hey, this is like a question, just like, hey, I'm a senior, high school. I care about football. I want to play next level, and they come up to you and they say, "What does Volts Athletics offer me as a senior?" What it's like, kind of like that little. I kind of want to hear to like someone and we someone coming up to you asking you or like through an email call and you telling them like what Bulls Athletics is providing them in that aspect of someone like, hey, I'm a senior going into my senior year, and I have no clue about recruiting. I have no clue about this, but I do want to continue playing in my college and stuff like that. I'm kind of hearing a little before we end this.
So it's kind of a trick question, because
It is.
sitting here today, going into December of their senior year, if a kid comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to go play college football, what do I need to do?"
Well, it'll be for next year. I was thinking
I
about
know,
it. Sorry.
but I've already had it. I've already had people like come up and do this, right? They finish up their senior year, they're not getting any love, they don't know why they're not getting recruited. All right, they come to me, it's like, "Hey, what can you do to help me get recruited?" First off, there's nothing I can do at this point in time to help you get recruited. The chips have already been laid, all right? Like at this point in time, it's already done, and that's because of the thing that I'll go ahead and tell all these other kids. If you're a freshman, a sophomore, or a junior in high school and you want to get recruited, there's a very simple process to do it. A, you got to ball out because your film is your resume. I don't care if you are an offensive tackle who is 6'8", 330 pounds. if you don't have tape to back it up, the people you want to give you a chance are not going to give you a chance because your tape means everything. Now, with that, it's about creating a highlight tape that's engaging that keeps coaches watching. As a college football coach, when we start the evaluation process, I would go through not only every single kid in my area, but also every single D lineman in the state. That's just our state, right? After I did that, then I started looking out of state. So I'm watching anywhere between 800 and 3,500 highlight tapes over that course, right? If you don't grab my attention in the first 30 seconds, I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm looking at somebody else. And the chances of me going back and looking at you again are extremely slim. So, first and foremost, you've got to have a highlight tape that is engaging and it does it quick. Because if you don't catch my attention right off the bat, I'm moving on. Now, as a junior, I'll look at that tape and see where you're at. I'll go back and reevaluate that as a senior, but if your tape still doesn't grab my attention, I'm moving on and I'm looking for somebody else because I don't have time to sit there and watch your 9-minute highlight tape of you catching 5-yard hitches. A 5-yard hitch is not a highlight, and a lot of these kids don't understand that. It may be a first down for your team, go team, but that is not a highlight. I want to see you scoring touchdowns. I want to see you getting sacks. I want to see you making moves. I want to see you turning nothing into something. And most importantly, I want to see all out effort every single play from start to finish. Making a sack when nobody blocks you is not a highlight. Should it go in your highlight tape? Absolutely. Should it be the first thing I see? Absolutely not. Right? If you catch that 5-yard slip or 5-yard, if you catch that 5-yard hitch and you turn it upfield, make that DB miss, and then you take it to the house, that's a friggin' highlight. But if I run a little 3-yard slant and I get tackled for a gain of 5, first down, go Cardinals, cool. Congratulations, not a highlight. Put it in your tape, but put it at the 5-minute mark. Because if you don't catch my attention in 30 seconds, I'm not going to make it all the way to 5 minutes. So, first and foremost, ball out, have an engaging highlight tape. 2, have grades that make it appealing. Because here's the thing there's a lot of schools that are just going to look, and if you are eligible, you'll get into school. But there's a lot of these schools out here where if you don't have the grades, they don't even look at you. Your Mercers, your Wake Forest, your Chapel Hills, your Vanderbilts, all these cats, if you don't have a 3.5 GPA, they're moving on. End of story. You're out. You've just closed the chapter or closed that book, closed that door and that opportunity just because you didn't take care of business. So, grades are ultimately one of the biggest factors when it comes to a lot of these talented kids going to go play ball or not. So, you've got to take care of your business in the classroom, take care of your business on the field. And then the last thing is take care of your business in the community. It's the same thing I would tell kids all the time. Those are the 3 elements. Handle your business on the field, handle your business in the classroom, handle your business in the community. If you ain't making plays, you ain't helping the team. If you ain't making the grades and you ain't in school, you ain't helping the team. And if you're out in the community doing dumb stuff and you're out there getting arrested or you're out there doing things that you shouldn't be doing, well, then ultimately you're not going to be on the team and you're not helping the team. Those are the 3 key points right there. You want to get recruited? Make plays. Handle your grades. Don't do dumb stuff.
Great point. And a great way to finish off for us for the first episode back.
Absolutely. And if any of you kids out here want to learn more about Vols Athletics, then you can check us out at volsathletics.com. You can also look us up on Instagram at Vols Athletics. You can also go on to Twitter and Facebook and every single other social media platform that you can think of to find out more information about it. We do everything we can to give you the opportunity to take advantage and to take a hold of your recruiting experience. This is your experience. This is your time. It's up to you to take control of it, and we're here to try to give you the knowledge to help with that.
I'd like to thank Volzie Athletics for helping sponsor this podcast as our sponsor now, and I appreciate you, Brian, letting us sponsor it.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about the things that we're going to be able to do here. For those of you that haven't heard yet, we are changing up how Vols Athletics is operating. What we're going to start doing starting in January is we're going to start interviewing coaches and players to be able to bring in on the podcast. And so that way you guys at home can listen to their experiences and try to learn from it. We've already got a couple set up. We have a former high school basketball coach who's excited to come on to talk about his experience with it. We've got a former Division II football player who was actually drafted in the inaugural or UC UFSL and went
Hesitant,
on to
sure.
win a yeah right and went on to win a national championship. And then we also have a college soccer coach who is also going to come on later this year to talk. And so we'll have a couple more set up moving forward. um, we're excited about where we're going, but we want to be able to give ourselves and give you guys an environment to be able to talk about things that athletes and coaches are dealing with that aren't brought out to the mainstream. Like I said, being a college athlete is difficult. Being a professional athlete is even harder. You want to know what it's like being a college football player? We're going to tell you what it's like. You want to know what it's like trying to get recruited? We're going to give you these guys stories so you can hear what they had to go through to get where they are, because it's not easy and not everybody's is the same. But we want to try to add as many tools to that tool belt for you to take advantage of your opportunities as possible.
And we haven't talked about me and Brian. I think we're going to try to aim for next week, and then Brian actually will be out doing having a honeymoon out of the country, so we won't have. We'll probably do one more for next week, and then after that, we'll probably be in for the rest of the year. We won't have our this podcast, but at the beginning of the start of January, we'll be hopefully on a set schedule, and we'll give you more information about that. Once we know, hopefully we can try to figure that out maybe next week, or we'll first know in January. We'll have a set schedule with guests on almost every show. So,
So yeah, and we still have to put together the fine works. So you guys know, I think what will end up happening is, I know on this unique scenario we're on a Thursday night, but moving forward, if you want to catch the live stream, you can catch the live stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Volzie or twitch.tv/BuckHeels. You can also catch us on Facebook Live and YouTube. Now, if you want to have the podcast version come out, which will be on Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio and all this other stuff, we'll start building that together based off of these, and that will start to be released as soon as next week. Now, once I'm able to get back from the honeymoon, I think a rough tentative schedule of what we'll have is we'll have the live performance on Mondays, where you can catch everything there as it's coming out, and then the podcast edition coming out on all of our podcast platforms, probably a Thursday or Friday release, yet to be determined. And so, um, looking forward to where we're going with that. We'll have more for you every single week. Look forward to building on this. I know this was our first one. A lot of working through things, but definitely excited of where we're heading and excited about our future guest.
and check our
So
social media, our for Double V, and we'll try to let you guys know ahead of time live next. Still haven't figured out that scenario at the moment. So we'll try to give notes to let people know when we're going live instead of just popping out of nowhere. But like Brian said, hopefully in January we'll have a set schedule when we're going live, so people know when we're going live and where to catch us, and make sure that, we'll have all the information.
absolutely. And Matt, while we're recording this, um, let's go ahead and do a little promo that we can put out on social media. You guys that are out there, appreciate you being a part. You guys get a first preview peek at it. But Matt, let's just start off. You introduce yourself, I'll introduce myself, and then we can kind of I'll put a little plug in that we can use to put up on social media. So I'll give you a countdown and then introduce yourself.
I'm Matt. I'm Matt Voles. I'm the other half. A lot of people say I'm the friendly giant, but I go by Matt or BuckHeels depending how.
All right. We'll try to shorten that up. You can say I'm the friendly giant or Matthew Voles.
I don't know.
I know. Just keep it short because we're gonna try. I'm thinking like a quick, like little 10-second clip that we can put up on Instagram.
Got it. Put me.
Go for it.
Hey, I'm Matt Voles. I'm the one half of the Double V Sports.
And I'm Brian Voles. I'm the other half of the Double V Sports Talk. Catch us on our podcast and live on Facebook and all of our other social media platforms to catch interviews from athletes and coaches to talk about their experiences as athletes, behind the scenes, life outside the lines. What do you think?
I think we gotta throw us one.
All right, I like it. Let's do it again. Hang on one second. Let me. And if you guys that are watching live have any questions or anything you'd like to see, we always love to hear it. Always want to hear from you. All right,
I got it.
ready?
Got that at the beginning. Welcome to Double V Sports Talk, sponsored by Voles Athletics. I'm the one half, Matt Voles.
And I'm the other half, Brian Voles. Catch us every week live on through our social media platforms, or you can wait until our podcast comes out where you can catch it wherever you listen to podcasts. I think I kind of stumbled all over myself. We can try it again. Do it one more time.
You like that? How I introed it though?
Yes.
Welcome to Double V Sports Talk, sponsored by Voles Athletics. I'm the first half, Matt Voles.
And I'm the second half, Brian Voles, where we dig in deep to athletes' unscripted life beyond the lines, talking about the real experience of what it's like to be a college athlete and a professional athlete in today's society. What do you think?
I like it.
Like it?
I like it.
All right. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll take this video and then I'll cut it up and take out some of our pauses and some of our other stuff for the actual voice podcast to be able to go out. And then we can go from there. So we'll be able to do our live podcast on here, be able to kind of have that option. I think, we talked about Mondays before. I think we can stick to that and be able to do that there. And then by Thursday or Friday, I think Thursday, I can probably have it done. We'll be able to put it together to go out on these other platforms. So, all right. Well, I guess that's pretty much everything we have live. So that's the Double V Sports Talk for this week. I'm Brian Voles. This is Matt Voles. We'll be back next week as we dig in deeper to athletes unscripted, life beyond the line. We'll drop in our social media who our special guest will be, and you can catch us once again live on twitch.tv/Volzie or twitch.tv/BuckHeels. You can also catch us on Facebook Live and YouTube. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all we have this week. Looking forward to seeing you guys again next week where we really dive in with our very first guest. Until then, we out.